In this lesson, we will be learning how to solve quadratic inequalities. So the first quadratic, we want to solve for x here. It's x squared minus x, strictly less than 12. The first thing you're going to want to do is get a 0 on the right-hand side. In other words, you want all of the terms on the left side of the inequality. So let's subtract 12 from both sides. Now this inequality says x squared minus x minus 12 is strictly less than 0. Now let's remember from earlier studies that whenever you have a quadratic, you're talking about a parabola. The graph would be a parabola. In this case, because the parabola has a leading coefficient that's positive, the parabola is opening upward. The question is, when is this parabola less than 0? When they say less than 0, they mean below the x-axis. So in this lesson, our strategy is to sketch the graph, and it's going to be a rough sketch, okay? Not very detailed. And then we can answer the question, when is it below the x-axis? Now, if we take this inequality, and if we solve the related equation, then we will find the x-intercepts of the parabola. This quadratic factors like so. And you can see that the two solutions to the quadratic equation are positive 4 and negative 3. These are the x-intercepts. And so I have my x-axis here, I have my x-intercepts, and again, I just want to let you know that this is a rough sketch, right? And we do know it's opening upward, and it has to go through those two x-intercepts. We know it's opening upward again because the leading coefficient was positive, right? And remember what the question is. The question is, when is the parabola below the x-axis? Well, it's below the x-axis between negative 3 and 4. So there's our answer, between negative 3 and 4. Now, because the inequality is strict, we cannot include the endpoints, negative 3 and 4. So let's put parentheses on the endpoints. The parentheses mean do not include the endpoints. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the solution. Now, I wonder what our answer would be had this inequality right here been different. Like, what if, let's see, let me actually write it down for you. Let me move the screen up, okay? So what if the inequality were like this? X squared minus x minus 12 is less than or equal to 0. Well, because this is now non-strict, we can include and we should include the endpoints. So the only thing that would do for us is put brackets on the endpoints so as to include those endpoints because this is non-strict. Okay, so if it's a strict inequality like we had in the beginning, let me go back up here. This is strict, then you're going to be putting parentheses on your endpoints. If the inequality is non-strict, well, then you're going to be putting brackets on your endpoints. Now, one more thing. What if the inequality were really different? What if the inequality were something like this? X squared minus x minus 12 is strictly greater than 0. Well, if it's greater than 0, then you're not looking at when this parabola is below the x-axis anymore. You're looking for when is the parabola above the x-axis. So you can reference the same picture, but this time you're looking at these branches here. It's above the x-axis there, and it's above the x-axis there. So then your final solution would be from negative infinity all the way to negative 3, union from 4 to positive infinity. There's two different intervals here because there's two different branches or two different intervals over which the parabola is above the x-axis. Remember, this branch goes forever to the left, right? So negative infinity to negative 3, union from 4 to positive infinity. And I put parentheses on negative 3 and 4 because this is strict, right? If the inequality were x squared minus x minus 12 greater than or equal to 0, well, it's the same thing, except you can now put brackets on the endpoints, on the x-intercepts is what I mean, on the x-intercepts. Never put brackets on infinity or negative infinity. Let's look at a brand new problem. Here we have x squared plus 8x is greater than or equal to negative 15. Right away, I see that this is a non-strict inequality. So when we're done, we're going to be putting brackets on those x-intercepts. All right, let's set this equal, or not equal to 0, but let's get a 0 on the right-hand side. Let's add 15 to the left. All right, not only do I have a 0 now on the right, I also consider that this is asking me when is this parabola, because it's quadratic, when is this parabola above the x-axis? Because when you're greater than or equal to 0, that means you're positive, you're above the x-axis. So let's do the same strategy. Let's see if you and I can find the x-intercepts. You find the x-intercepts by solving the quadratic equation. Okay, so substitute an equal sign for the inequality symbol. And you can use the quadratic formula here to solve. You can complete the square if you'd like. I'm always a fan of factoring if it factors. So after factoring, I find that my two x-intercepts are negative 5 and negative 3. So let's get a quick little sketch going, and I do mean just, you know, really rough here, or really simple, a simple graph here. So an x-intercept is negative 5, another one's negative 3. This parabola is going up again because the leading coefficient is positive. So here's our parabola. So you can see in this context, you don't need to find the y-intercept, you don't need to find the vertex, all of that is irrelevant. Now don't forget what the question was. The question was, when is this parabola above the x-axis? Well, it's above the x-axis for that piece, that interval, and that interval. So your final answer would be from negative infinity to negative 5, put a bracket on that x-intercept, union from negative 3 to positive infinity. And that's it. That's it, you guys. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. I want to just pick your brain a little bit. Had you had something like this, x squared plus 8x plus 15, instead of greater than or equal to 0, how about, like, I don't know, less than or equal to 0? How would your answer change? Well, first of all, you're looking for when the parabola is now below, right? Below the x-axis. That's what less than or equal to 0 means. So here's the below piece between negative 5 and 3. So I'll just write between negative 5 and negative 3. I think I said positive 3. Negative 3. And these are non-strict, these are brackets because this is a non-strict inequality. Okay, so basically this is the end of this lesson. All you need to do is find the x-intercepts for the parabola, sketch a little graph here, and answer the question whether they're asking you whether the parabola is above the x-axis or below the x-axis. I love this approach because a lot of us are visual learners, and for us to see a picture like this, I think is really helpful. All right, see you later.